It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is Annapolis Fire Chief Douglas Remaley and Firefighter First Class Kenny White. Gentlemen, thank you both very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Chief Remaley, you are relatively new in the chief position. You are certainly not new in the firefighting service. You started when we were 16 years old.
I did. I started here in the city of Annapolis when I was 16 as a volunteer at the Eastport Volunteer Fire Company while I was still in high school. And during high school, I was able to attend classes at nights on the weekends to start my training as a firefighter. When a lot of my friends were out, I was at the firehouse at night times and weekends riding a fire engine and helping people in the public.
I'm always fascinated by what happens in our youth forming us as adults. Did you decide at 18 months, 2 years, 4 years?
So many people always think, what are they going to do with their life? I knew early on in my life that it was going to be in public safety, whether it was in the law enforcement or the fire service. I grew up in the fire service. My father was a lieutenant in Annapolis for some time. He moved on to be the first career fire chief in Nags Head, North Carolina, and then to the county fire marshal's position. But my grandfather was a deputy chief here when there was volunteer deputy chiefs under Chief Steele. So I grew up around the fire service in the city of Annapolis. I grew up here in the city of Annapolis, went to local schools here. This is my community, and I've been fortunate enough to grow up here, serve the community here, and become fire chief here. And
it was ordained. Family business, huh?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So you started as chief when?
I'm not even sure what month it was. It was 3 months ago. So I was acting prior to that because the chief was off, and throughout my career I've done some stints as the acting fire chief here in the city of Annapolis. I was the deputy chief for more than 10 years prior to that.
And you brought Kenny because you know I like Kenny, and that would make this an easier interview. It was a brilliant PR move.
Kenny is one of our public information officers. We do not have a full-time public information officer currently. Unfortunately, during budgetary issues years ago, we lost that position, and we rotate it now through with people in the field as a collateral duty, and Kenny is one of our PIOs.
I can tell you, without even knowing when Kenny's on duty, I know when Kenny's on duty when the proverbial fill-in-the-blank hits the fan, because he's all over social media. You know this, right?
He is over social media. We know that is one of the things we need to improve in the Annapolis Fire Department is our increased social media. When Kenny was assigned to the fire marshal's office in the PIO, he took our Facebook page and I believe Instagram also, but Twitter, and he moved those forward. And unfortunately, because we had concerns, we had to put some more people in the fire apparatus because we were short of people in the field.
Kenny, you're a paramedic, yes?
Yes.
So you were needed as a paramedic.
Paramedic.
To save lives rather than to be on Twitter.
Yeah.
And tell us what's going on. Yeah, I get it. So budgetary constraints and paying overtime for Kenny when there wasn't the budget for it. Is this going to be solved someday so we do have a PIO, do you think?
We are working on a plan. Myself and Deputy Chief Spriggs have some goals that we set out in the department. One of those is getting a person, maybe not back to the full-time PIO position, but more PIO responsibilities combined with public outreach. And that all falls into the public information officer's job anyways, the public outreach and public education. So we are working to get that person or a person back in there full time as those collateral duties with multiple other ones, but that would be more of their focus is public outreach, which would include the public information officer's position.
We in the media would really like that. It helps us do our jobs. It helps us know what's going on. Manpower, woman power, how are you doing there? Do you need more firefighters?
So any fire chief that tells you they don't need more firefighters is probably lying to you. Of course we need more firefighters, but we understand we're the stewards of the taxpayers' money. We understand with the call volume that we have, the number of people we need. We are having some challenges currently with people that are out injured, sick. We have 8 people in the academy right now, so those people aren't in the field, and that affects our daily staffing. But we do the best job we can, and we put fire engines and medic units on the street every day.
The stations that you have, so that people aren't familiar with the Annapolis Fire Department, you share Station 8.
So we do. We have a partnership with the Anne Arundel County Fire Department. It is an excellent partnership. That fire station sits right on the city-county line in the Annapolis Neck Peninsula. It's sort of a unique station because you have to come through the city of Annapolis to get to that part of the county. So we share that station. County actually staffs the fire engine there. We staff a medic unit and EMS supervisor out of the station. That station also has the county's dive team, and we have members on that dive team. So that station is a joint station. They call it Joint Station 8 or Joint Base 8. Which is the Annapolis Next Station.
And then you have the headquarters on Forest Drive.
So we have the Forest Drive Station, which is across from the Safeway at Bywater and Forest. We have the Eastport Fire Station, which is at 914 Bay Ridge Avenue, which is in the heart of Eastport, and then the Taylor Avenue Station, which is near the Navy Stadium.
And the one in Eastport is volunteer?
We have 3 volunteer companies in the city of Annapolis, but that station is, while it's the Eastport Volunteer Fire Company is housed there also, we have career members in that station. It's an excellent partnership we have with the volunteers. The volunteers that are from the Eastport Station, they actually have purchased the fire apparatus in that building. So the red fire apparatus is actually purchased through community donations through the volunteers and staffed by members of the Annapolis Fire Department.
That's amazing. And you started as a volunteer. You know there's a little bit of a line there drawn in the sand between career and volunteer.
All the fire services started from the volunteer fire companies, without a doubt, throughout the United States over the years. Yes, there can be sometimes some controversy because people are out there doing it for free. And it's harder, though, for those individuals now. And the number of volunteers throughout the United States has decreased, and it's because of the standards that have to be kept up, the time that's involved, because they have to meet the same standards as the career firefighters. But we welcome volunteers. They are a vital aspect to the department, and we have an excellent partnership with our volunteers.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me is Chief Douglas Remaley of the Annapolis Fire Department and Firefighter First Class Kenny White. Chief Remaley, you had said at your swearing-in ceremony, your top priority will be the health and safety of our firefighters. You plan to work with the mayor, city council, and firefighters local 1926 to do everything possible to make sure all of our personnel go home safely to their families and live a long, healthy life. I am really sorry for your loss November of Lieutenant Josh Snyder, who lost his battle with cancer. He's 34 years old. He left behind 2 children and a wife. His cancer was myelofibrosis, a form of leukemia that has been associated with firefighting. Yes.
That is correct, and it was a deep loss that we had currently with the loss of Lieutenant Snyder. The crews took that one pretty hard, without a doubt. I mean, Lieutenant Snyder was still working with us up until the time he went back into the hospital and unfortunately never made it out of the hospital.
Has that been classified a line of duty death?
It currently is still being reviewed. Cancers throughout the fire service are a major concern. That is one of our concerns in our safety initiative. There are certain forms of cancer that are presumptive, but that has to be looked at. It's got to be, the doctors have to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Obviously, with this comes workers' comp claims. So that's all being reviewed at the current time. So it has not necessarily been treated as a line of duty death. It was an active member death, and we are still reviewing all the data with that.
One of the things fire departments have done in recent history is they've upped the physicals, how many physicals you get, and many departments have started 2 sets of turnout gear with also the equipment to wash thoroughly the turnout gear. How's the Annapolis Fire Department doing with those?
So we started in this last budget cycle. We had actually started our cancer initiative prior to that. So when units are on the scene and our firefighters go into a working house fire, they come out, they have to be decontaminated right on scene. So we have buckets on the apparatus for that to decon their equipment. So we get them out of their equipment as soon as they can, that firefighting gear. So we've been doing that for some time. This last budget cycle, the city manager, mayor, and the council were able to help us out a little bit to do our cancer initiative because we've been telling them this is coming and this is a very major concern for us. So We have turnout gear extractors in our stations, so we can have the turnout gear washed here locally. So if we have a working fire, they can put their gear into the extractors, and then it can be dried for them. Actually, if they get off in the morning, the crew will make sure that it's dried for them, and then it's ready for them in their next shift. We've increased the number of turnout gear that we have in stock, so when there is a working incident and the firefighters have been contaminated with the byproducts of combustion, they take their turnout gear off. The turnout gear goes to the extractors, and they head to our supply office at the Taylor Avenue station, and they get a loaner set of gear. We currently do not have the budget to issue 2 sets of turnout gear to everybody. Along with that, we don't have the space in the stations currently to store the second set of turnout gear. Ultimately, we'd like to get to that point, but we have a pretty good plan in place that at least gets them into loaner gear until their gear is cleaned. So that is there. We also were able to increase the physicals. Our physicals were based on your age. Depending on what age you were, is whether you got it every year, every 2 years, every 3 years. The NFPA recommends every year. Every year is required for our hazmat or special operations teams. We did get funding to increase the number of physicals done. And ironically, the physicals actually are what gave Lieutenant Snyder his diagnosis. It was a routine fire department physical that actually caught that. And he was able to get into treatment at that time. So physicals are very important. We continue to do that. We send our people to physicals every year, and the council has actually increased our budget for that.
You've been around the service for a long time, right?
I have.
Do you look back and say, I can't believe I did this? Does this scare you? How do you...
Oh, absolutely. It scares me. It really scares me because a good portion of my career I was in fire investigations. So not only do you get these byproducts of combustion while you're fighting the fire, I actually would go through the fire scene and dig through it to see what caused the fire. So I'm actually digging through those materials that are off-gassing more. I look back and say, hey, wish I would have done something different, but I think that's throughout history. Years and years ago, firefighters didn't have the turnout gear that we have today, the self-contained breathing apparatus that we have today. So we continue to enhance our protective equipment as it comes forward throughout the industry, and we continue to look at that regularly.
Mental health and suicide prevention. How do you approach this at the Annapolis Fire Department?
So we have crisis intervention teams within the department. We have a mental health professional that is a doctor that we have contracted with the department. So he works with our critical incident stress teams for debriefings, and anytime we have a concern, we have peer support. And Kenny, you can jump in anytime. We have peer support personnel on staff that can talk to the individuals. We have a doctor on staff that we can call at any point in time. So the team has become engaged. We have increased the number of people assigned to the team. We've actually did suicide prevention training from our doctor this last budget year. So we've provided that to our personnel, and we continue to look at that as we move forward.
Kenny, after every horrific incident, and you've seen a few of them, I'm sure, do you ask for help, or is it immediately provided? Do you have to ask?
It's not required that you ask for help. In the past, sometimes in the fire service, we tend to be our own worst enemy. We think, hey, we can struggle through it. Yeah. We'll be fine. But over the years, you start to realize that a lot of that you tend to take home with you. And so what we have now with the CISM team is, a way to talk about it, with other peers. But we don't just offer the service here in Annapolis. Sometimes we'll reach out to Anne Arundel County, Howard County, PG County if they have horrific incidents and they need support. We'll offer that support to other departments as well.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me is Chief Douglas Remaley of the Annapolis Fire Department and Firefighter First Class Kenny White. Now this is where Kenny goes into the hot seat, literally, with me asking him the questions, and the Chief can relax. All right, Kenny, it's December, and during the holiday season, Annapolis hasn't had a great record. We've had the fatal mansion fire. We had the Annapolis Yacht Club fire. We also had fires on Main street. What do you want to tell people to keep them safe and their property safe this holiday season?
As always, we send reminders out every year, or we try to. But every year we constantly have Christmas tree fires, cooking fires. So especially with Christmas trees, that's one thing we're kind of seeing, especially running calls out in the field. Live Christmas trees, many have live Christmas trees, even artificial Christmas trees. We want the public to just keep in mind that if it's a live Christmas tree, make sure that the tree is healthy, make sure it has a good color on it, make sure you cut at least 1 to 2 inches off the base before putting it in the stand, keep it watered, and at the end of the season, take it down. If you're going to be putting lights on your Christmas tree, make sure they've been tested in an approved laboratory. The reason why you cut 1 to 2 inches off the base of it is so the water can absorb in the tree a lot better.
Both the fatal mansion fire and the fire at the Annapolis Yacht Club had Christmas trees involved.
Christmas
One
trees.
was a live Christmas tree that was almost over 2 months old in 2015 at the mansion, and Annapolis Yacht Club's was an artificial tree, and I think both of those were related to faulty outlets.
For the lights that they were using. So the lights they're very pretty, but before going to bed or leaving the house, turn them off. If there are any fraying in the wires or any bulbs that are out, you want to replace those. If the lights are old, just get a new set of lights. It's just not worth it because just like the live Christmas trees can burn, artificial trees can burn just as easily. And then with the artificial ones, as firefighters, actually speaking to the cancer, a lot of things that they put in artificial material is not good. So we just want to remind everyone to turn your lights off before you leave the house or before you go to bed.
Speaking of artificial and plastics and all that, it's so much quicker now for a house to burn than it was 50 years ago, right? Because of all the plastics and
plastics, wood, all the chemicals and artificial things that go into the home. So it burns a lot quicker than, more your old style heavy timber homes. Most of the homes now are 2x4s and trusses. So by the time the fire department gets called, we get on, we get dressed, we get to your house. It's already been burning for a good 3-4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. It's the structure's already compromised by the time we get there, and they burn pretty quickly.
The fire on Duke of Gloucester Street in November, that happened, the house was built in 1886. What is that? What kind of special circumstances goes into that? Either you, Kenny, or Chief, with these historic structures. And by the way, you got it under control very quickly, yes?
We did. It was a very early morning fire. It happened that the caretaker for the parish across the street was coming to work and noticed the fire while everybody else was sleeping. He immediately called 911 and he started knocking on the neighbors' doors to make them aware that there was a fire.
That's way to go.
We were glad that he actually saw that at the early morning hours because the fire had been well progressed already, and any other further delay probably would have progressed the fire even farther. But we have excellent partnerships with the Anne Arundel County Fire Department and the United States Naval Academy Fire Department. And for most of the people listening to us, don't generally know the difference whether it's an Annapolis Firefighter or Anne Arundel County Firefighter, except for the color of the fire engines or the patches on our shoulders, because we have mutual aid agreements that are basically automatic. So if we get a structure fire in the city of Annapolis, you're going to see Annapolis, Anne Arundel County, and Naval Academy firefighters all at the scene, without a doubt. Outside of the city, it's going to be the same way. If it's on the Annapolis Neck Peninsula, you're going to see Anne Arundel County, Naval Academy, and Annapolis firefighters there. So we actually dispatch using automatic vehicle locators because our dispatching is done through Anne Arundel County. So we're going to send the closest unit. If it's a heart attack victim, you're going to get the closest units to the scene so that we can help that survival rate. So the fires are the same way. We're going to send the closest unit to the fires. Those partnerships help. We train together all the time so that everybody knows what everybody's doing. We have standard operating procedures, or OPMs, operating procedures, that we utilize. So everybody's very familiar with those, and it's like clockwork. Everybody just starts working. And we were able to get multiple units to the scene relatively quickly and be very aggressive with putting that fire out and making sure it didn't spread. There were 3 structures that were involved, and we have those issues in the historic district without a doubt because the houses are on top of each other, the homes. So there were 3 damaged by fire, but generally the fire building itself was the one that sustained the most of the damage. The other 2 buildings were pretty minor in damage. So we're proud that we were able to get there and do that. And we know that we've seen the Main Street fires previously that have extended because of the close nature of the businesses next door to them.
You had a firefighter injured in the Duke of Gloucester incident.
We did. That firefighter was inside pulling ceilings because we have to check for hidden fires. Those buildings are old. It had lath and plaster ceilings on it, and as they were pulling ceilings, a large portion of the ceiling came down, and that's pretty heavy. It came down on him, knocked him basically to the ground. He was treated and released. He's back to work, so we're very fortunate there. He's doing fine.
I wish you both a very happy and healthy holiday season, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We'll see you next week.